I've spent the last few days watching Cleveland Browns minicamp footage over and over again, and honestly, I think most people are completely missing what's actually happening. Because while social media keeps obsessing over quarterback controversy rumors, trade speculation, and the non-stop drama surrounding the Browns, there's a quieter story unfolding underneath all of it. A much more important story. And once you notice it, you can't unsee it. What stood out to me wasn't just one flashy throw or one viral practice clip. It was the structure behind everything. The types of receivers Cleveland is bringing in, the way certain players are being developed, the kind of offensive traits the coaching staff suddenly seems obsessed with. Piece by piece, the Browns are starting to look less like a team randomly rebuilding and more like a franchise intentionally constructing an offense around a very specific quarterback skill set. And yes, that quarterback appears to be Shedeur Sanders. Now, before anybody freaks out, minicamp isn't real NFL football yet. There's no live pass rush, no defenders trying to take your head off, no real game pressure, but that doesn't mean minicamp is meaningless. In fact, if you know what to look for, these early sessions reveal something incredibly valuable: preparation. You can instantly tell which rookies spent months getting ready for this opportunity and which players showed up expecting talent alone to carry them. And based on what came out of Cleveland this week, one thing became very clear. The Browns may already know exactly what kind of offense they want to build for the future. The biggest mistake fans make during minicamp season is treating every highlight like proof somebody is either a future superstar or a complete bust. That's not what these practices are designed for. Nobody's getting hit. The pass rush isn't real yet. Quarterbacks aren't dealing with collapsing pockets or defenders trying to disguise coverages at full speed. So if you walk into minicamp clips looking for final conclusions, you're probably going to completely misunderstand what you're watching. But that doesn't mean there's no real information available. In fact, minicamp quietly reveals some of the most important details about a football team long before the season starts. You can see movement quality, you can see route discipline, you can see who understands spacing and timing. Most importantly, you can see who already prepared privately before arriving at the facility. That distinction matters more than people realize. Because NFL coaches immediately notice the difference between rookies relying purely on athletic ability and rookies who already understand professional-level details. The second group usually survives in the league. The first group often disappears fast once the real games start. And when I started studying Cleveland's footage closely, one thing stood out immediately. The Browns don't look like a team improvising anymore. Everything feels intentional. The formations, the receiver archetypes, the emphasis on timing and spacing, even the types of players being praised by coaches all point toward a specific offensive identity starting to form behind the scenes. It doesn't feel random at all. That's why the minicamp footage became so fascinating. Because underneath all the normal off-season noise, the Browns quietly started revealing the blueprint of what they want this offense to become. And the first rookie who made that blueprint obvious wasn't a quarterback at all. It was Denzel Boston. The moment his practice clips surfaced, Browns fans immediately started making one dangerous comparison after another. And while some of those reactions were probably exaggerated, there's one reason the hype exploded so quickly that honestly makes complete sense once you break the film down carefully. The Josh Gordon comparisons started almost instantly after Denzel Boston's first minicamp clips hit social media. And honestly, that's usually the kind of comparison people should avoid completely because prime Josh Gordon was a different level of talent. But once you actually look at Boston's physical profile and the role Cleveland desperately needed filled, it becomes easier to understand why fans reacted the way they did. Because the Browns have quietly lacked a true boundary receiver for years. And that missing piece has hurt the offense far more than casual fans probably realize. Without a legitimate outside threat who can physically challenge defensive backs, the entire offensive structure becomes compressed. Defenses crowd the middle of the field. Safeties cheat toward shorter routes. Quarterbacks lose clean throwing windows because nobody on the perimeter consistently forces defenses to respect deep outside coverage. Boston immediately changes that equation physically. He's long, strong, and naturally built for outside receiver responsibilities. But honestly, the most impressive part of his minicamp performance wasn't the size or the catches, it was the technique. That's what really jumped off the footage. Boston wasn't simply bullying defenders with raw athleticism. He was manipulating coverage before routes even fully developed. His release stems, footwork, and body positioning showed signs of someone already understanding how to influence defensive leverage at a professional level. And that's extremely rare for a rookie this early. Because route intelligence like that doesn't magically appear during a few walkthrough practices. That kind of refinement usually comes from months of private preparation nobody sees. Empty gyms, private coaching sessions, endless repetitions without cameras around. You could tell immediately Boston arrived in Cleveland already understanding what this opportunity required from him. And that's exactly why coaches get excited about players like this. Physical traits alone can get someone drafted, but disciplined preparation is what convinces organizations a player might actually become part of the long-term foundation. Boston's minicamp performance suggested he belongs in that second category. And once you connect his skill set to Shedeur Sanders specifically, the entire situation suddenly becomes much more interesting. Because Boston might not just be another receiver addition. He might actually be the exact type of weapon this offense has been missing for the quarterback Cleveland quietly appears to be building around. The deeper you study Cleveland's offseason moves, the harder it becomes to ignore one possibility. The Browns may already be constructing this offense specifically around Shedeur Sanders' strengths. Now officially, nobody inside the organization is going to come out and say that directly right now. But when you line up the roster decisions next to Shedeur's skill set, the pattern starts becoming difficult to miss. And Denzel Boston is a perfect example of that. One of Shedeur's biggest strengths as a quarterback has always been his accuracy in tight and intermediate throwing windows. He's comfortable standing in the pocket, reading leverage, and delivering timing throws before receivers fully break open. But that style only works consistently if defenses are forced to respect the outside of the field. That's where Boston changes everything. If he develops into a legitimate boundary threat, defensive coordinators can't overload the middle anymore. Safeties get pulled wider. Corners have to respect the perimeter. Suddenly, those intermediate lanes where Shedeur thrives become cleaner and easier to attack. And honestly, that's the type of structural football detail casual fans usually miss while focusing only on highlight clips. But it doesn't stop there. The Browns also heavily invested in offensive line protection this offseason, reportedly pouring massive resources into creating a much stronger blocking unit. That matters because Shedeur spent huge portions of his previous football experience operating behind unstable protection. Despite that chaos, he still showed toughness, accuracy, and composure under pressure. So now fans are wondering what happens if he finally gets real protection consistently. That's a dangerous thought for the rest of the league. Then you add receivers with route intelligence and movement versatility into the equation, and suddenly Cleveland's offense starts making much more sense stylistically. This doesn't look like a random collection of talent anymore. It looks like a system designed to maximize timing, spacing, accuracy, and controlled aggression in the passing game. And if that interpretation is correct, then the Browns already know exactly what kind of quarterback they believe can operate this offense successfully. But while one rookie generated excitement during minicamp, another rookie accidentally revealed a problem that could become much more serious over time if it isn't fixed quickly. Because for all the optimism surrounding Cleveland's new receiver group, one issue kept showing up repeatedly on tape, and quarterbacks never forget it. While Denzel Boston generated hype, Concepcion created a very different conversation during minicamp. Because underneath all the encouraging movement skills and flashes of separation ability, one issue kept appearing over and over again on tape: drops. And honestly, there's no point softening that reality. Drops are one of the fastest ways for receivers to lose trust with quarterbacks in the NFL. Fans often treat drops like random mistakes that disappear once the next play happens, but inside football organizations, they carry much more weight than that. Every missed catch creates hesitation. Every failed opportunity plants doubt. Over time, quarterbacks start second-guessing whether they can rely on certain receivers when games actually matter. That psychological effect is real. And for a young quarterback like Shedeur, trust becomes even more important because timing and anticipation are such major parts of his game. He throws with confidence into tight windows, but that only works if he fully believes the receiver will finish the play consistently. That's why Concepcion's hands immediately became a concern. Now, to be fair, focusing only on the drops would also ignore a lot of positive signs, because outside of the catching issues, his route running actually looked extremely promising during Minicamp sessions. He created separation through intelligent movement, proper timing, and controlled footwork instead of simply outrunning defenders. That distinction matters a lot. Receivers who rely only on raw speed usually hit developmental ceilings quickly once NFL athletes catch up physically, but receivers who understand leverage, spacing, and timing give coaches something much more valuable to build on long term. Concepcion already showed flashes of that understanding during practice reps. And that's why Cleveland's coaches probably aren't panicking right now. Because fixing hands is difficult, but it's still far easier than teaching a receiver how to process coverages or manipulate defenders naturally. Concepcion already appears advanced in some of those technical areas. The foundation exists. Now the consistency has to catch up. Still, the drop storyline became impossible to ignore once Minicamp clips started circulating online. And right around the same time, another rookie generated his own wave of internet overreactions after a few impressive quarterback throws. But according to some analysts watching closely, fans immediately misunderstood what those clips actually meant for Cleveland's future quarterback situation. The moment Talon Green started making a few impressive throws during Minicamp, social media immediately did what social media always does: people started manufacturing quarterback controversy. Suddenly, clips were getting reposted everywhere, with captions suggesting Cleveland might have another hidden quarterback battle developing behind the scenes. But honestly, that reaction says more about internet culture than football reality. Because Talon Green absolutely has intriguing physical tools, nobody watching those practices can deny that. The arm strength is real. The mobility jumps off the screen immediately. And in a controlled environment like Minicamp, quarterbacks with athletic upside are always going to create exciting clips because there's no real pass rush disrupting timing or exposing mechanical flaws yet. That's where context matters. While Green's raw talent is obvious, the footage also revealed several developmental issues that become much bigger problems once real NFL pressure starts. His release mechanics still need refinement. Some throws sailed high, others arrived late. And in actual NFL games, tiny delays in processing or throwing mechanics become dangerous fast because defensive coordinators spend entire weeks attacking those exact weaknesses. Now, none of this is meant as criticism of Green personally. He's a developmental sixth-round quarterback, exactly where a sixth-round developmental quarterback is supposed to be at this stage. The flashes are exciting. The ceiling is worth monitoring long-term, but trying to turn a few Minicamp highlights into serious competition for Shedeur completely ignores how NFL organizations actually build quarterbacks internally. And honestly, some analysts became frustrated because they've seen this exact pattern before. Every offseason, certain practice clips get used to manufacture drama because controversy generates engagement online. A backup quarterback throws one nice deep ball during a no-contact practice, and suddenly people start pretending the depth chart is unstable. But according to the bigger organizational picture inside Cleveland, that doesn't appear to be happening here at all. Because the Browns' off-season decisions consistently point in one direction. The money invested into the offensive line, the types of receivers being added, the offensive structure itself. None of those moves look like random rebuilding decisions anymore. They look like calculated investments tied to one specific quarterback archetype. And once you zoom out far enough, the bigger strategy becomes almost impossible to ignore. Because Cleveland doesn't appear to be building generic depth anymore. They appear to be building an entire football identity around a quarterback they quietly believe could become the future of the franchise. The more you examine Cleveland's offseason from a distance, the clearer the blueprint becomes. This doesn't feel like a franchise blindly throwing talent together hoping something works. It feels organized, deliberate. Almost every major move points back toward maximizing a very specific offensive philosophy. And at the center of that philosophy appears to be Shedeur Sanders. Start with the offensive line investment alone. Cleveland reportedly poured massive resources into improving protection after watching Shedeur spend huge stretches of his football journey operating behind unstable blocking. That experience revealed something important to the organization. Despite constant pressure, he still maintained composure, accuracy, and toughness. So instead of forcing him to survive chaos forever, the Browns appear determined to eliminate that weakness structurally. Then look at the receiver room. Boston gives the offense a true boundary target, capable of forcing defenses to respect the perimeter. Concepcion brings movement versatility and separation ability underneath. Together, those skill sets naturally create wider throwing windows in the intermediate areas where Shedeur has historically looked most comfortable and efficient as a passer. That's not accidental roster construction. Even the coaching structure feels connected to this larger vision. Cleveland's offensive system increasingly emphasizes timing, spacing, processing speed, and controlled aggression rather than reckless improvisation. Those are all areas where Shedeur's strengths quietly stand out when you study his game closely. And maybe the most important detail of all is this. The current Browns leadership doesn't appear emotionally tied to older quarterback decisions anymore. That matters because organizations often stay trapped trying to justify previous mistakes instead of adapting to new realities. Cleveland suddenly feels different. The coaching infrastructure, personnel decisions, and developmental focus all suggest a franchise trying to build forward instead of protecting the past. And honestly, that's why Minicamp footage became so fascinating in the first place. Because underneath the normal off-season practice clips, there's evidence of an organization slowly laying the foundation for an entirely new identity, not just at quarterback, but across the entire roster structure itself. But what might separate this rebuild from previous Browns rebuilds has nothing to do with superstar talent alone. It's the culture being created underneath the depth chart and the type of players now competing for roster spots inside the building. One of the most important things revealed during rookie minicamp had absolutely nothing to do with highlight plays. It wasn't a deep throw, it wasn't a one-handed catch, it wasn't even about the starters. It was about preparation. Because coaches can immediately tell the difference between players who treated the offseason seriously and players who showed up hopping raw talent would save them. And according to the practice footage and evaluations coming out of Cleveland, the Browns suddenly have a lot more players falling into that first category. That's a major deal. Denzel Boston's advanced route understanding didn't magically appear overnight. Concepcion's movement sophistication wasn't created during a few walkthroughs. Those details are built through months of invisible work long before cameras arrive. Empty gyms, private training sessions, endless repetition without attention or praise. And organizations chasing real success obsess over players like that. Because over a brutal 17-game NFL season, roster depth matters almost as much as star power. Injuries happen, momentum shifts, backup players suddenly become critical, teams with weak preparation collapse under adversity, Teams filled with disciplined depth players survive those moments and stay competitive. That's the hidden difference Cleveland may finally be building toward. Instead of relying purely on big names, the Browns appear focused on constructing an entire ecosystem of players who already understand professional expectations before stepping into the building. That creates internal pressure at every position. Nobody gets comfortable. Nobody assumes draft status guarantees opportunities. And honestly, that environment might be the strongest sign, yet that this rebuild is different from previous versions Browns fans have suffered through. Because fake rebuilds usually focus on headlines and hype, real rebuilds focus on infrastructure, habits, and long-term sustainability. Cleveland's minicamp footage quietly revealed signs of all three developing simultaneously. And when you combine that culture shift with the offensive structure being assembled around Shedeur Sanders, the larger picture becomes incredibly interesting. Because this no longer looks like a franchise waiting for luck to save them. It looks like a franchise methodically constructing an identity piece by piece, player by player, practice by practice. And if these minicamp sessions are accurately reflecting where the organization is heading, then the Browns may already know something the rest of the football world is only beginning to realize. They may have already found the quarterback they believe can lead the future of the franchise. The most fascinating part about Cleveland's minicamp isn't any single highlight clip going viral online. It's the pattern hiding underneath all of it. Because once you step back and look at the full picture, the Browns suddenly stop looking like a chaotic franchise searching for answers and start looking like a team quietly building around one very specific vision. And that vision appears connected to Shedeur Sanders. The offensive line upgrades weren't random. The receiver additions weren't random. The emphasis on route intelligence, spacing, timing, and preparation doesn't feel random either. Piece by piece, Cleveland has started constructing an offense designed to support accurate timing-based quarterback play instead of forcing constant improvisation under pressure. That's why these minicamp clips matter more than people think. Not because minicamp predicts wins or losses, but because it reveals organizational priorities. It shows what coaches value. It exposes which players already understand professional expectations. And maybe most importantly, it reveals the direction a franchise is quietly moving before the public fully catches up. That's exactly what happened here. Denzel Boston revealed how badly Cleveland wanted a true boundary receiver capable of opening the field structurally. Concepcion exposed the balance between upside and trust that young offenses constantly battle through. Talon Green showed why raw athletic flashes can create internet excitement without actually changing long-term quarterback plans. And underneath all of it sat a larger truth becoming harder to ignore with every practice rep. The Browns are building infrastructure. Real infrastructure, protection, depth, route sophistication, competitive culture, developmental accountability. Those aren't the moves of a franchise improvising week to week. Those are the moves of an organization trying to create long-term stability around a quarterback they believe can eventually lead them forward. Now, obviously, none of this guarantees success. NFL rebuilds fail all the time. Prospects disappoint, injuries happen, expectations collapse. But for the first time in a long time, Cleveland's process actually feels coherent. And that's why this minicamp footage became so important. Because while most people were distracted by off-season noise and manufactured quarterback drama, the Browns quietly started revealing their real plan in plain sight. One practice rep at a time, one roster move at a time, one carefully constructed offensive piece at a time. And if these early signals are telling the truth, Cleveland may already know exactly who they believe their future quarterback is.